What's up, guys? Welcome to a Roaring podcast from Roaring.io, where we talk to some of the best in tech and product management. My name is Jesper Kask, and I'm your host. Today we're joined by a very exciting guest, Carl Lönndahl, Head of Change and System Management at Nordnet. We go into detail on Nordnet's relentless focus on customer experience and process automation, and the role that digital data plays in those two focus areas. Enjoy. Okay, welcome back. We have a super interesting guest today in Carl Lönndahl from Nordnet. It's great to have you here, Carl.
Well, thank you, Jesper, for inviting me.
So just to sort of dive straight into the topic, tell us a little bit about yourself and the story behind Nordnet, where you work currently.
Yeah. Well, so I've actually been with the company, I think, when we're broadcasting this, I think for 15 years. So that's quite some time, to be honest. One of the oldest at the company, even though you can see me at the picture, you see that I'm still looking quite young, right? and so does the company. So my role is I'm currently the head of change and system management. So we're basically handling our business critical third party systems, but we're also running the cost efficiency program at Nordnet. And I think that we're going to deep dive into that in a bit. Myself, I've been around the company working in pretty much all areas. I think might be some department that haven't had the luck to have me yet, but that might happen in the future. So Nordnet was founded in 1996. From the beginning, we were an online broker. Today, of course, we're an online bank. When I began my employment in 2007, we had just reached 40,000 customers. Today, we have 1.5 million in the Nordics, more than 1.5 million in the Nordics. So that's quite an expansion. As you hear, we are active in all the Nordic countries, and our goal or our promise is to democratize savings and investments in the Nordics. We are doing that by having, in my opinion, at least, but also some of the customers, I will come back to that, by having a fantastic digital platform and also a user experience that goes from A to Z, from our web to our apps. If we're looking upon what the customer think about us, I can tell you that in 3 of the 4 countries where we have our business, we are the number 1 competitor in Net Promoter Score. So we're quite satisfied about that, and we are continuously working on our journey to create the absolute best customer experience for everyone involved. So that's a short introduction to Nordnet.
That's very impressive, and obviously the results are as follows. And I wanted to sort of ask you, because obviously Nordnet has had a lot of success when it comes to automating these different processes, and that's sort of one of the magic sauce of your success. Could you tell me a little bit about that and what's behind that, so to speak?
Yeah. Well, of course, Nordnet has been rapidly growing in the last couple of years, the last 20 years. And of course, what happens when that is made is that we saw that, well, the operational cost, that's the administration cost, so basically customer service, back office, and etc., it was growing in the same pace as the customer inflow. So, for instance, if we had a customer growth of 15% in 1 year, we would have a increased operational cost of 15% as well. That's not the same as the cost were 100% correlated to the revenue, because, of course, our margin has increased, but we wanted it to increase even more. And since we have made rapid development, it's not always that we have thought about the automation part or the digitization part of everything. So we might have released a phase 1, but never really came to phase 2, where we should work with the automating or the automation of the process. So in 2017, we said that, well, this is enough. We need to have one department starting this. And that was basically a kickstart. Nowadays, we are thinking about automation in everything that we do. So if we are building on a customer journey, for instance, you should directly look into how will we digitize this whole process before we release it to the customer. So we are thinking in quite a different way than we did 10 years ago, or prioritizing a bit different than we did 10 years ago. But 2017, back to that, then I got the opportunity to create a team that first made an analysis of the complete company, so to speak, everything from accounting, back office, and finance, on what we could do in the automation part. And basically in the last 5 years, we've been mostly working with operations and back office. And what we found was that, of course, we can save resources, that's one thing, but what we really wanted to become is scalable. So we don't want the operational cost to grow in the same level as the customer growth is doing. And I can happily tell you now, before we go into the details, that now the operational cost has had an increase yearly of 2 to 3%, but the customer inflow in the last 12 months was 35%. So that's quite impressive, of course. But the key to everything, that was that you can start automating wherever you want. You can start in the back end, for instance. I think that most companies have the issue with that. Well, we have a lot of papers coming into us, a lot of agreements and things that the customers want to do. You can automate that with scanners and whatever system you want. But if you really want to do something digital, if you really want to automate something, you need to have the input data digital. And it would cost you a lot of money, Jesper, if you're going to have someone who converts the physical paper to digital data in a system. So our first approach was actually that we need to digitize the inflow from our customers. We need to have digital forms. All the errands, all the agreements, all the questions that come from customers needs to come in digital channels. And this might come to as a surprise for some people that, wow, wasn't Nordnet there? No, we were not, and our competitors were not either. But we had the capability. We knew how to do it. And in 2017, we started. So for the first 3 years, the only thing we did was digitizing forms. And the way that we did that was that we thought directly of the new platform, or the way that we're going to digitize these forms were going to be scalable. So we bought a system that were not dependent on IT development. So we bought a third-party system just to be able to have normal user creating forms that they could release to our customers, and in that way increase the scalability of the whole company. So that's where we started. As of today, the initiative that we have that consists now of both digital capture, that is the forms tool that we have, and identification and signatory that we have through Scribe today outside, and also our suite automation tool that is basically a process automation tool. Those together stands today for a savings of 45 full-time employees. So that's quite impressive. And it's not that we are not moving away people. I mean, it might be that we move someone from one department to another, but this means that there are 45 more people that we didn't have to recruit. And also that our experts on back office, in our operations and etc., they can work with what they're actually hired to do. And they have a special competence. It's not, we don't want them to administrate an Excel sheet. So that's in short what we have done, or short. I think I only took 6 minutes for me to describe that, but that's in short what we have done. And as of today, as I said, 45 full-time employees. I think in the end of the year we have a target of up to 60, and we will reach that. Absolutely.
Yeah, very impressive, like you mentioned. And what are some of the processes? Can you mention a few examples of the processes that you've been able to automate?
Yeah, of course, we have done a lot of internal improvements that I don't think that people know about. So let's speak more about some processes that customers can see at other banks as well. So for instance, a credit process. There's a lot of papers involved in a credit process, Jesper, right? You probably have some mortgage or something like that connected. So, for instance, in that area, what we have done is that instead of the customer coming in with a physical paper to us, they are doing everything in a form. But after that, we have checks with external services, where Roaring is one of those, where we are checking everything so that we actually can make a decision on the credit within 10 to 15 minutes. From where you apply from it. And we also respond to you in a digital channel. And just doing this was an increase when it comes to applications in the credit area. It grew by 200% directly over the night just because we had a very lean and nice process. So it's not only about saving resources, it's also about increasing the hit rate on existing customers and driving more customers to a flow. So that's one example. Other examples, which I think that a lot of people have tried at other banks and at our bank, is, for instance, how do you create an account for your son or daughter? You need to have signatures from both parents, right, Jesper?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you need to look up, are these really the parents? So there's a lot of information here, and what we used to do is that first they come in with a physical agreement, and we need to check in external registers. Are these really the parents? Have they signed the power of attorneys correctly? And then after that, we need to print from the external services just to prove in our documentation that these are really the parents, and etc. Now we're doing everything around that digital. So if you want to open up an account for your children, you just enter Nordnet, you go to the form, and in the form, you can directly fill in who the other parent is. And when you have done that, the signatures goes over to that person through SMS or email. Then that person signs it, and then automatically through Roaring now, since we are speaking in the Roaring podcast, we can check in both Sweden, Denmark, Norway, and soon Finland. We can check directly, are these the parents? And then we can confirm it. So the account can be opened within minutes. And that's extremely cool. I mean, and this is some of the large hurdles that all of the bank has. We need to work with external registers all the time. And the other good example of that is the account opening or new customer process for companies. Because a company has a lot of regulations when it comes to who can sign for the company and in what errands can they do that. And we have all of that digital as well, and we look it up through digital services, external. So what we basically have built here is some type of a monster, not a monster, a fantastic system that actually can help us with both providing the customer a good customer journey, but also provide us with all the data that we need in order to open up an account, for instance. So those are some examples. We also use it in our AML area, where I think that we have saved the most resources of it all. So some of the processes when it comes to AML is handled only through SuiteForms, Roaring, and Suite Automation, which is our process automation tool. So that's extremely cool when you look upon how many employees the other banks has working with AML.
And you sort of mentioned the new sort of timeline from when becoming a customer, opening an account for a minor in minutes now. And just to get a sort of a sense of what it looked like before, what was, are we talking days, months? What was the process previously?
Yeah, well, that's dependent on how fast you were to send the agreements back to us. But if you printed them yourself, of course, you can send them today and you will have your account within a week. But most people wanted us to send the agreement home to them, and then they need to fill it out and send it back. So basically, I would say around 14 days was the normal process. And then a lot of the cases also needed completion because they were not filled in correctly. Now we can tell the customer directly that something is wrong, or you have filled out something wrong. And I mean, that's a big difference. So now you can open it up and you can have your account within a day. It took 14 days before. The same with credit, could take up to 2 to 3 weeks. I mean, there's a lot of agreements, a lot of things that you need to show, like if you have security for the loan that you're going to take out and etc. Now that everything is done digital, you can have your answer within 15 minutes, or at least 80% of the flow can have their answer within 15 minutes. Before it could take up to 3 weeks.
Okay, so one of the things you sort of mentioned as a challenge in automating different processes is digital data. Could you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, I would say that, well, to begin with, the customer has a lot of details that they need to provide us, and we need to confirm all those details. Then there are some details that the customer doesn't even know that we need to check in external data sources, and that's a big obstacle. And to get all of these together to create a errand where we can then do something automatically, I mean, that's one of the keys. And I think that for most companies here, I think that if they are actually doing an analysis, they will pretty much find out that they we really need to bring in digital data. What we have done together with Roaring here is that basically we are having everything in one API, and we're very thankful that you have actually created a roadmap based on our needs. That's of course a luxury. I can't promise that to all of you that are listening that they will do that, but try. But don't mess up with my roadmap. Thank you. No, but what we did together with you was that you were on a journey as well, a Nordic journey, where you wanted to become a good provider of customer and company data within the Nordics, and we really needed that data. We did a common roadmap when it comes to that on company and person data that we really needed to have provided. And one of our things that we were very, very hard on when we discussed the details was that we wanted everything connected in one API. We don't want 25 different sources that we should ping every time that we need to find data, because that also costs money. That's also a question of scalability. So now we have everything connected in your API. And for instance, some of those that we have already mentioned, and that's miners and companies, where we were not blank. I mean, we had the data, of course, but they were all on screens. We couldn't receive it in metadata or anything like that. So if you're going to automate anything in this world, you need to have everything digital. So you need to have all details from the customer digital. You need to have external sources digital. You need to bring it in a way that you actually can work with it in an automated way, or for that matter, in a physical way. And I would recommend everyone to start in that area, because what you will see are two things. One thing is, of course, that you can start the automation. This is like the kickstart. If you get everything digital, it's up to you what you do after that. But also, it increases the experience for the customer. So there are two things going hand in hand here. If the customer can do everything digital, they don't need to call you, they don't need to send in agreements, you will see your hit rates going up quite a lot. The other thing, because now we're speaking about data, but I want to bring up something else, Jesper, and that's
go ahead.
Working in a strategic manner and focusing. I think that I've been involved in a lot of projects where, and been the head of a lot of projects where we have brought in new third-party systems. I would say that there are a lot of good vendors out there. If you're looking on the data as Roaring are, or if you're looking upon a CRM system or a process automation tool, I mean, there are millions, Jesper. Both you and me know that. But sometimes it's not only about the provider and the system. I would say a lot of times it's also about what internal organization you have. Are you actually providing the correct competences and the number of resources that you need to this project in order to make it good? Because I can honestly tell you that we started this journey in 2017, but I mean, the large results have come within the last year. And that's because we have had a team of 8 people working with this in so many years that they are now experts. We have built in so many functions into this system. So we are not really reliant anymore on developers or consultants or anything like that, because we have everything in the system. Time is a key here, and focus is a key. If you don't have the time and the focus, there's no 3-month project that can solve all of your scalability issues. Don't fool yourself.
Yeah, so basically consistency as well as digital data and a strategic focus are sort of the key takeaways on your end.
Absolutely, and consistency is one of my key takeaways when it comes to running a business. I mean, consider this. When you are bored at your brand that you have, the Roaring brand, for instance, I can probably guess that then no one on the outside has heard of it. I think there is I think there's a correlation here to why Coca-Cola has had like almost the same trademark for 150 years, and other companies has had that as well, because you cannot keep that many trademarks in your head. And it's the same about this. I mean, consistency is continuously making you better. If you're changing the strategy each 3 months, how are you going to become an expert in what you're doing? And it's the same with automation. You really need to invest in this. It doesn't cost a lot of money, to be honest, because you can be smart when you choose the vendors, the system, the digital data provider, but you need to invest in competence. And there's no way that you can have consultants filling up your business intelligence that you have internally, because internally we have the people who know how to make a process. And no consultant in the world can provide that for you. Or maybe someone could do that, but they don't know how the systems and everything works. You need to invest in some people really working with this in order to make it increasing exponentially within time.
And what's next for Nordnet in terms of automation and processes? What are you guys currently working on now? I don't know how much you can tell us.
Well, I can tell you in general what we're working with. So I'm very happy now that we can see that the big product team that we have are working in what we call customer journeys nowadays. So we're basically working on the complete experience within critical customer journeys. One example is payments, just to mention something. I won't go into any details here. But that means that we're actually working with the workforce of us, the whole product team and tech in different customer journeys in order to create a better customer experience the whole way through and an automated experience the whole way through. Because also think of that what my team can do, of course, has boundaries as well. I mean, we can't do things on our own website, for instance. That's only tech that can do. We have some external services to our customers that are only tech and product that they can make changes to. But when we provide all these competences together and work in a customer journey, you will soon see, Jesper, that being a customer at Nordnet is as fun as going to a party.
Sounds like a dream.
By the way, Jesper, are you a customer?
I'm not actually. I recently switched banks, but I chose to go with a different bank. I'm sort of swearing in church here, but I actually chose another bank, and not because of the digital offer though. So,
well, probably I can help you. It goes very fast nowadays to become a customer. Jesper, I can help you after this show.
I'll hook you up afterwards. And since we're coming up on time, I just wanted to see if you had any sort of closing thoughts or anything you want to leave the listeners with that they could take away from this podcast.
As I said before, I think don't fool yourself. I mean, the key takeaways to begin with: don't fool yourself. You need to be consistent with what you're doing. You need to have a strategy that works over years. You need to think of this as something that is normal in your business, as normal as it is as administrating something else. You need to administrate your scalability within the company. It's not a small project. You could kickstart it as a project for the company. A few months, maybe a year, but then it needs to go in your veins. It needs to be within everything that you do. Scalability. So that's one thing. The other thing, as I said, is don't start in the wrong end. Don't start with trying to automate the product of your scalability issues that you have. As I said, that you're bringing in all the agreements, physical, for instance. Don't try to solve the back end of that. Try to solve the initial issue. Is there some other way that we could do this? Yes, it is. We can provide it and bring it in digital, and that also means that we will grow. So you will also see a big increase in your business. Then start with the automation. The automation part. So I would say those steps are the absolute most important things that you have when you're automating. And then choose good providers, of course. Choose someone who matches the way that you're working. That's why we have chosen Roaring for this. We have chosen Scribe and Suite because they work very well together with us. We have the same culture, the same way of thinking, and of course that you are providing us with a roadmap that we like.
That small detail.
Yeah, that small detail. So those are my key takeaways, and don't forget to have fun, because that's always important in this. And don't be irritated that things takes long time, because as I said, the snowball effect takes quite a few years to increase. But then suddenly you go from, like we did, in 2 years we had automated 8 FTEs, and then in 1 year we added on 20 to that, because we got the snowball effect of the systems that we have built.
Awesome. That's great, Carl. Listen, it was amazing speaking to you today. Thank you so much for coming on. And I look forward to seeing you more again.
Thank you, Jesper. Thank you for inviting me. And before you broadcast this, I hope that you're a customer.
Great.